I think we're going to start. We'll probably have other women joining us today, but it's good to get going. Welcome everyone to our Salon number 45, the Gift of Play of the Maternal Gift Economy Breaking Through series, hosted by Genevieve Vaughan and the International Feminists for a Gift Economy. I'm Letitia Layson, your moderator. Today, we have Meera Patel and Juliette Liebi, who join us from Spain today. Meera Patel and Juliette Liebi have worked together for the past 8 years on various projects and initiatives that aim to embody the practicalities of the gift economy. They are co-founders and trustees of a charity, Rock, Stone, and Pebbles, founded in 2018, which aims to support and raise awareness on the importance of play in children's lives and the wider society. RSP is a small charity run on a fully voluntary basis by Meera and Juliette. They both have regular jobs as professionals, accountants who work in large charities like the British Red Cross, Comic Relief, Action Aid, etc. You can read more about both of them at our website, the maternalgifteconomymovement.org. And now I would like to hand the mic over to Meera and Juliette. Welcome you both.
Thank you, Letitia. I'm Juliette, that is Meera. What you could expect today, we will be presenting on PowerPoint. We're honored and very excited to present today. We're aware that there might be a diverse range of people in the audience today with different communication preferences. So we'll speak on each slide and read through them as well. Please do have a pen and paper ready for some fun, perhaps thought-invoking activities that you might want to share. We'll also be watching a total of 3 videos showing the 2 projects that we are busy working with at the moment. We expect the presentation to take 1 hour with 1 hour discussion questions. Please do type in the chat. We can't see your comments in real time. That would be way too many things all at the same time. But Diane and Judith are managing it. Thank you both. And we'll be sharing them with us after the session. We welcome all your feedback. Thank you. I'm going to share screen now and put up the presentation. If you give me a moment. And we have liftoff.
Thank you, Juliette. And thank you, Letitia, for the wonderful introduction. I'd like to just start by reiterating that we are so excited and honored to be invited to talk at this forum today. We've tried to create a fun and playful presentation, and we hope we keep you engaged and interested. I'll start by introducing ourselves just a touch more so that you have context of who you're speaking to and where it's coming from. Juliette and I, first and foremost, are life partners. We met in 2015 when we were working in Action Aid, and very soon became very close friends, fell in love, and ended up deciding to spend our life together. So my first and biggest gift from the universe in the last few years has been Juliette. When we met in 2015, soon after, it was in 2016 that she took me to her land in Spain, which is a 2.5 hectare area of dry lands. And we started trying to build a rock garden there, playing with rocks and stones, which is how the name of our charity actually developed. At the moment with this land, we're guided by gift economy principles. We're really trying to create an open and shared place. We're trying to use water harvesting and permaculture principles to regenerate that land there. and create a shared space that seeks to respect, care for, and learn from the nature and earth around us. Soon after being at the land in 2017, we started conceptualizing Rockstone and Pebbles, our charity. And in 2018, it was registered and became live. One of the ways we can do what we do is we work as consultants. So should we take on short-term contracts every year? And we've made the choice to work approximately 5 months of the year as professional finance consultants in the large UK charity sector. And the rest of the time we spend on our voluntary work between Rockstone and Pebbles and the land in Spain. This presentation will now focus and take a lens through Rockstone and Pebbles' eyes.
Firstly, we can't speak about the gift economy without speaking about Genevieve Vaughan. I met Jen in a flat in London around 2016. Meera has known Jen for about 30 years. We began speaking and she spoke about her life's work in the gift economy. Personally, I felt that my whole life had changed. It had been moving forward in a direction that was unclear. I couldn't lend myself to the circumstance that we had found ourselves in. So I woke up the next morning and I could honestly say that I had a complete paradigm shift. So the first gift, thank you, Jen. For both of us, when we think of the gift economy and the principles it puts forth, we can't think of it without thinking of Jen. She introduced both of us to the concept of the gift economy, which had a bigger impact on our lives than we could have imagined at the time. It really was a paradigm-shifting idea that influenced many of our subsequent decisions, including the way we set up our charity, RSP, and how we are approaching our land in Spain, recognizing the abundant gifts in the land gives us and trying to share those gifts with others. As most of you who are joining from us, you know that we've had many discussions with you on the gift economy. So I'm very happy that you're joining today and we can speak more about it together. The gift economy, as we understand it, we continuously interpreting it, lends itself to many practical applications. And when we seek to adopt a different mindset and approach, one that is in complete juxtaposition with the entrenched and accepted model of capitalism and the exchange economy, we move closer to the nature and a more natural way of living.
So we're going to take a look at exploring the gift of play through the lens of Rockstone and Pebbles. And we're going to start with what is play.
Okay. I'm still convinced that the horse looks like me in this shot, apart from the obvious, the eyelashes. But when we're looking at play, it is defining play and activities that can be constituted as play continues to be an area of debate within research and academic circles. Research and studies often make the distinguishment between free play, which is self-directed by the children, or guided play, which includes some of the type of adult involvement. At RSP here, we purposely do not define play in any specific way. Instead, we seek to co-create opportunities and safe spaces that enable children to have fun and express themselves. If we consider that play is ambiguous and hard to define by its nature, we can think, for example, of watching a child walking down the street. They have a little bounce to them, potentially hopping on one leg, potentially walking on a line that they can see on the pavement, or that international game that we've all played, me from South Africa, always would be the crocodiles on the floor, and we would jump from various areas of the furniture to avoid this crocodile infestation below us. That level of imagination is play.
So we're going to take a moment to talk about why play. Why did we choose play as the central topic in our charity as we set it up? And for many of us here today, like us, no doubt questioning the viability and sustainability of the current structures and systems that we're living within. And as adults, we're often entrenched in this static way of perceiving our world. And from this viewpoint, require a lot of unlearning to find those innovative solutions to the problems we face in our society. So we imagine a world where children have the space and time to play, imagining and exploring, developing their natural talents in their naturally compassionate and gifting way that can be transferred to the real world. What would such a world look like? And children become adults who shape the world we live in. There's a growing body of research and evidence that highlights the importance and value of play in children's lives and the impact it has on the types of adults they become and on future societies. We take a moment to look at this diagram. As adults, we often look at play in this way. We look at the benefits through the cognitive, social, physical, and most importantly, the emotional resilience and well-being lens. We see what play can bring, the learning, the innovation, the creativity, a space for diversity, new ideas, exploring, experimenting, inventing. So there's a lot to be gained from play, and often some of these more finer benefits are lost and we forget about them. It's also really important, we believe, to think about the negative impacts of play deprivation on children, on the adults they become, and on future societies. Again, there's a lot of evidence-based scientific and medical research on the negative impacts of play deprivation in children's lives, and an increased interest in this area since the COVID pandemic, which obviously clearly highlighted the negative mental, physical, emotional impact that all of us, and especially our children, suffered due to lack of play and being able to have fun and be with their friends. So there could be a range of things that children feel and what it leads to when they can't play. It can start with being sad and anxious, a little depressed, lethargic, apathetic, and it can move into more aggression and socially awkward, anger, stress, and mental breakdowns. Research also indicates that play deprivation can negatively impact brain growth through gradual loss of electrical activity in the brain. And epigenetical studies show that the effects of one generation can echo through and affect later generations. Play is children's language. Children have played across time and spaces, and they will always look for ways to play. But it's our responsibility as adults to support them, to access their rights, and to ensure they have the opportunities, time, and spaces to play.
So if we look at the overview of the presentation of the last two slides Meera's put, while children have the stated right to play, they don't always have the agency to create those spaces and opportunities for play for themselves. So we as adults, as members of civil society, it is ultimately our responsibility to have an understanding of the power of play. Play is not a luxury. Play is not a frivolous activity. It's critical to children's lives and to help them not only survive, but thrive. Fortunately, COVID has brought this out into the minds of people more than before, when the effects of the lockdown has been evidenced. And people are now starting to actively advocate for spaces for children to play and access this right.
So we're now going to take a look at 3 of the Rockstone and Pebbles projects that have shared and spread the gift of play. We will predominantly be looking at the most recent project we've carried out, which was in India, but we'll always also touch upon 2 other projects that look at play and what we've done with that. One is based in South Africa and one in the UK.
So firstly, we start with what motivates us, what our approach is, what guides us. When we look at us at RSP, Rockstone and Pebbles, we are a registered charity in the UK that work internationally. We're governed by 3 trustees, both of us and Anna Petruccelli. Meera and I are also co-founders and management of the charity. If we imagine what our ultimate vision would be, it would be a sustainable future created through play, collaboration, and shared learning. Our stated mission is to enhance and co-create spaces that facilitate learning, innovation, and collaboration to positively impact the lives of vulnerable children through the power of play. The aim of this is to develop sustainable interventions that can have positive intergenerational impact by supporting children to access their right to play. As we spoke before, a lot of our approaches are influences from the gift economy. How are we able to take the values and the understanding of the gift economy and interpret them within our charity? And one of the areas is collaboration. It sits at the core of our vision and drives the way we work. In fact, we would not have been able to achieve what we have in 5 years with the little finance resources as a direct result of taking deeply collaborative approach. Working collaboratively with other organizations, other individuals who are value aligned, we share, receive gifts of knowledge, expertise, resources with different partners around the world. They've helped us grow, we have helped one another grow, become stronger, and make a positive difference in many communities and more children's lives than we would have been able to do alone. Like with gifting, collaboration requires a deeply considered approach towards each other's needs and takes time, but in nature, the fruits it bears are sweeter than we could imagine. And that beautiful little diagram from our last annual report, collaboration is the essence of life. The wind, bees, and flowers work together to spread the pollen. Collaboration sits at the heart of our values. It's stated as our first values because we believe that lasting change can only come through collaborating, working, and shared learning. We're building strong relationships where transparency is key. We share information openly and honestly. We learn from our mistakes and reflect on our learning. We spend a lot of time designing MEL frameworks, which monitoring, evaluation, and learning, so we can see how we are able to move forward. Within play comes innovation. So we try and also be playful, even in the seriousness of the charity. We encourage creative, experimental efforts and explore local solutions that can be co-created resourcefully, thinking outside the box, challenging ourselves. This would obviously lead to diversity where we honor and embrace people's fundamental right to be different and unique and contribute in different ways. And respect is just an obvious, really. We strive to treat people with consideration and care. When we look at what drives us, it is predominantly our values. When we're looking at decision-making, we look at the stated values. Is it collaborative? Are we being transparent? Are we being diverse? These are the areas that we challenge ourselves with. But in order to understand exactly the change that we're making, we look at a framework often used in the nonprofit sector called the theory of change, which is this diagram here. The purpose is to explain how an intervention or a group of interventions is expected to lead to a desired social change. It's a very simple diagram, though it took us almost a year to develop. And we have over 12 versions to get to this stage. So a lot of work and thought and back and forth was put into it. Fortunately, we had a collaborative partner who gifted us with mentorship and workshops and guided us through the process itself. Also, we included a young volunteer who brought so much thought to the process as well. The primary focus of this is to ensure that we have a tool for decision-making when we in a circumstance, when we consider an activity or a project, we look at our theory of change and consider whether these activities fit into what we're proposing to do. Another risk of charities are mission drifts, which it supports managing this risk. When we mission drift is often a high risk for charities as the needs of the beneficiaries now referred to in charity circles as project participants, are often very varied. In such projects or interventions, you can come across so many varying needs that it's easy to drift off in mission and thereby watering down your key mission and impact. So if we talk through the theory of change really quickly, the gray areas, learning, as we spoke about collaboration, sustainability and excellence, is our approach and our foundations. The purple area in the top is the change we're seeking to make, that all children can recognize, access, and enjoy their fundamental right to play. How are we able to then do that? We are making the proposition that if we do those three things in orange, we will reach that aim of social change, which is improving and increasing play opportunities and spaces for children, increasing awareness and engagement on the importance and the right to play. And lastly, increasing civil society capacity and impetus to facilitate children's right to play. You can look at the slide in more detail later, but in the green section that looks at specific areas of how we do that, looking at play projects, advocating, and capacity building.
I'm going to speak through our journey for a little moment here to help you understand where we started and where we have got to and how we got to where we got to. So we're in year 6 of our journey of Rockstone and Pebbles. And we separate stage 1 as the first 4 years. These were big learning years. It was really important for us to build a strong organization, especially having worked in very large charities and seen the complexity that's involved when you're working in projects that are going to touch people's lives. It's not something to play around with or take unseriously. So building a strong organization was fundamental for us, and we took a lot of time to set those foundations right. We spoke about collaboration earlier, and that was an approach that we had planned on taking and set out taking from the very beginning, of exploring and growing deeply collaborative relationships, looking at what our synergies were and carrying out activities or building impact, growing impact together, and learning about play. Because although we set up a charity which was all about play, we are not play experts, and we knew little about play. What we did believe in was the power of play, which is why we chose to work with play. So learning about play became critical for us, and a lot of that was done through our collaborative partnerships and relationships as well. Stage 2 started the first year of our 3-year strategy, and moving from learning about play to testing and implementing diverse experimental play projects. And these are 3 of the play projects we're going to look at today, following this slide. We continue to deepen and grow value-aligned partnerships and are committed to building an excellent organization. And in this stage, we started bringing youth voices into RSP more deeply as well. One of the ways is we started to pilot a young internships program, which was a paid internship structure to genuinely try and work with and support the youth in this society where we are having huge crisis around youth employment. So the testing and implementing of these projects, the 3 key projects that we worked with last year in this year 5 was a project in South Africa, a project in the UK, and the most recent project in India. And we'll briefly introduce you to these in this next slide. We'll talk a little bit more about each of these and show you some videos around specifically the India projects, the India project 2 videos, and the South Africa project 1 video, which is in its early development, although we have a lot of media and information around this project that we're going to take this year to assimilate, to collect, to create engaging videos which could be used as resources by other organizations or people wanting to emulate any such activities or projects. So very quickly to highlight the differences between the three projects. The project in South Africa is with an organization called Mad About Art, one of our oldest partners. We started partnering with Mad About Art and supporting them since before RSP was even registered as a charity. And we'll talk a little bit more about that next. This project that we embarked upon with them in last year is about the children of Mad About Art who live in the nearby township and visit that center on a daily basis, how they co-produced artwork that voices their experience of accessing their right to play. This project is still ongoing and has involved more than 60 sessions so far. The second project was a project in the UK, and it's looking at a technology called appropriate paper technology, which is a very innovative, sustainable technology which uses only cardboard, flour, and water to make durable furniture. It's been used by cerebral palsy, for example, and developed by it in Africa to create sustainable and viable solutions for, particularly for children with disabilities, to make chairs and furnitures that suit them. Here, what we are trying to do in Rockstone is bring APT into the play space, adapt it into play opportunities and spaces, how we can bring that in and start thinking about using it in a playful way. The group of youth we worked with in this project was a very small group, 6 youth, teenagers, and quite excluded youth who were basically pretty excluded from school, detention, and coming from difficult backgrounds and challenges. And the last project is the India project, which is what we'll look at the most through the rest of this presentation. And it was a project that Juliette and I went to India and directly implemented. It was about improving, increasing play opportunities and spaces for the children in this community, and involved many activities, a lot of which you'll be seeing.
Okay, so this is a bit of background, after which we'll play the MAD video. Mad About Art is a charity that supports vulnerable young people affected by HIV/AIDS by using art as a platform for healing, igniting hope and imagination. MAD Center is based in a township called Nekkies, which is in the southern part of South Africa, in a town near Knysna. It's been a haven and safe space for thousands of vulnerable children for over the last 20 years. Our relationship, our relationship with MAD is an accumulation of many years of gifting and collaboration, a very long story going back. It began before RSP was set up as a registered charity. I started working with one of the trustees, working on the operations, the finances. We supported on the governance. We shared our gifts and talents. I visited the center some years ago when they were going through some organizational change, and I did an external review and delivered it for the trustees. When we set up with RSP, our growth with MAD extended quite collaboratively together. MAD was carrying out play activities, but play and the right to play was not a strategic focus in the organization. We spoke and worked a lot on this together, and now the value of play and the right to play has become centrally embedded at MAD. And in 2022, RSP and MAD started co-creating a right space pilot play project launched in February 2022. MAD has substantial experience on right space approaches, having worked in creating artistic advocacy tools for medical access for children affected by HIV/AIDS. The structure of this program is a series of play-based sessions with children, where they practice, explore, and share their experience of accessing their right to play. Through artistic expressions from painting to role-playing, some of which you'll see on the video, They were supported by mad facilitators and artists with the tools and practical skills to co-develop this major work. And ultimately, the result will be a series of painted banners that will be used as advocacy materials for wider audiences as a call to action on supporting the children's access of right to play. There was a varied number and age of children, so between 8 to 16-year-old, predominantly the mid-range of those ages that were working on this. I'm now going to play through the video, so do enjoy, and I think it says so much more than we're able to say verbally.
We must have the opportunity to explore and understand our culture. We should be involved in culturally and artistic activities and be able to go to places like museums and festivals, theaters, concerts, and libraries. Governments must make sure that none of us are left out. If government takes all of this serious, our lives will be happier and healthier.
Before I continue, I just want to say the girl that was reading, it was a free resource created by the International Play Association, that they freely share a child-friendly resource that children can understand when accessing their right to play, which within the UNCRC's Article 31. We now move on to APT. And you can just see Linda so sweetly standing on that chair, demonstrating the robustness of the stool that we created. It's quite extraordinary to consider that this stool is created from cardboard, newspaper, and glue made from flour and water. Charities like High Hopes for Children, of which Linda is the founder and trustee of, and Cerebral Palsy Africa have used APT as an affordable, viable solution for making bespoke furniture for children with disabilities in the Global South. Our relationship with Linda began quite a few years ago in 2017. We had a collaborative relationship with her and High Hopes for Children. When we discovered APT, Meera and I were extremely excited at the opportunity for play on APT, to learn something innovative, low cost, accessible, and imagine the feeling of accomplishing something that you can put together like this. Linda's a play expert, an APT trainer, and author of a Lumos publication, The Importance of Play, which is freely available on their website. The other collaborator and ultimately implementer of this project in Whitstable is Kimmy Spreadborough. She's an old friend, experienced play worker, and she was also trained by Linda back in 2019 when we proposed our first APT play pilot with younger children of Somerville Adventure Playground, whom Kimmy actually introduced us to. When we look at developing this Whitstable program, it was through a lot of collaborative efforts. Linda gifted us with an APT refresher workshop because Kimmy and the RSP trustees had already gone through that, supporting on the project design to access this into younger groups. Kimmy co-created this RSP-funded pilot, the project deliverables, and planned together with us. We also built a relationship with Fastgate Academy in Whitstable, and they agreed to use the premises and implementing this project with their young engagement group. Fastgate are an organization where they use skateboarding as their access for children to have a safe space to be and to play. Kimmy implemented a series of workshops with the young people where they learned every stage of the APT, bringing this accessible and sustainable technology to young people to explore, to play and innovate with. Each participant had hands-on experience of every stage of the process, involving making glue from flour and water, creating robust structures from cardboard, and basic woodwork methodologies such as cutting, creating angle irons, and connecting boards. The participants also gained with Kimmy an understanding of their right to play and explored what play meant to them at the cusp of their adulthood. If we look at the actual process, personally, this makes me extremely excited. They start off, you can see when they're preparing the cardboard, you use the same philosophy as you would with wood, interestingly enough, although it's converted to paper. It's the way that you land the cardboard and you connect them that gives it its strength. You then connect it with newspaper and you strengthen it throughout. Kimmy worked very closely with them on designing it and then practically cutting it, putting it all together. A very interesting coincidence is that this was happening in February when Meera and I were in India. Whilst they were making the snakes and boards ladder on a stool, we were making a big snakes and boards game on the floor in India, and we had no idea. So that says something, isn't it? So this is some of the end of the APT outcomes. We've got the whole series on our Instagram if you'd like to see more of it.
So we're going to go into our third pilot, and these are the next videos which will show you around India. This project involved working predominantly in one of the schools, Tabala School. There were also other activities carried out with children and an attempt to build a wider understanding and appreciation on the importance of and right to play in children's lives in the wider community. One of the things we did was take 400 children from 3 different schools together on a play day out to Science City, which was a very crazy thing to do. I think everybody loved it. I don't know if we would do it again, but it seemed to work for that time. And the background is we decided to go to India because in 2016, my dad went there and he wanted to build and restore toilets in public schools without such facilities. He ended up building and restoring toilets in 7 of the 12 schools he visited and stayed with, and was greatly supported by his sister, who we were also very much supported by in this project, and we stayed with her as well during this project. And thanks to her and thanks to those relationships built before we had even come onto that space, we had some strong relationships and foundations to start off on. And it allowed us to carry out proper pre-assessments. My aunt and the other school administrator, Harishbai, helped us fill out some questionnaires, visit schools, send photos back, which allowed us to develop the project design, project activities, and define a project plan months before we arrived in India, and something we shared with the key stakeholders there as well. First thing we did when we arrived in India was visit the stakeholders, and including the builders who we knew would be critical in carrying out some of those planned project activities. Adapting some of the project plans was also important, something we'd considered beforehand, and building that flexibility in through that budget space as well. So, for example, the principal was very keen to repair and heighten the school wall to promote a safer space. And this was then built into the plan. And once we started the project activities, we included the children at all stages. And their joy and enthusiasm to do all things was incredible to witness. Without them, we couldn't have done as much as we did. We had planned to do one mural. We ended up doing 3 murals and other activities. Anyway, you'll see it on the video as we show that to you next. And before we come on to the video, this is just a quick sharing of how we're trying to share this information and create it into engaging resources. So we've made 5 videos so far on this project. There's still other activities that we need to cover. It is a very resource-heavy activity. Every minute of video time you see takes about 10 hours to create. But we are finding that it is a way to capture learnings, to share successes, help people spark ideas, and open it up for emulation. The 2 videos that we'll be showing you today are the ones highlighted in yellow here. So the first 3 videos were about the 4 floor games we carried out. And it covered things like how we co-designed, measured, primed, used and mixed oil paints, etc. And one of the videos is the final of the floor games, which is the last video we'll show you. We'll start with showing you the summary of the activities, most of the activities we carried out at the Tabela Primary School, which is the only one still not posted on public media, needs a little bit of completion, but all the rest of them can be found on our YouTube channel. So before we watch the video, it's a 6-minute video, and maybe just look at it and consider how you might adopt play practices in your own life or work. And we'd love to hear your thoughts. We'll leave a 1-minute pause after the video to give you a chance to share your thoughts on the chat. Enjoy the video.
We will be extending the wall up to about here. This is to ensure that the playground that we'll be improving over here remains a safe space for the children to access their right to play. Sorry, that ends very abruptly. It's still in editing phase, but that is the completion of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. When we look at how much we accomplished in that, it's quite striking even for us. And this is a result of the gift economy in action. We mentioned Indira was Meera's aunt. We stayed at her, but we truly would not have been able to accomplish what we had without her. Her direct actions and the years of relationships she's built. She's based in Ahmedabad near the community in Gujarat. She supported with project pre-planning, as Meera said, visited the school, built a relationship, introduced us to the key stakeholders, and beautifully advocated on children's right to play with the schools that we visited, the different educators, and in the final event that we carried out. She also hosted us at her home, of course, at no cost, as Meera mentioned. Harish Bhai was also a very keen supporter of this project. And we received many gifts with Harish Bhai. He was very keen on understanding the right to play. And on this photo, you can see him speaking to the children at the school at which he's the principal, speaking about their rights to play. just pre-taking them on the Science City play day. He engaged very closely with our project activities beyond the call, including organizing transport, the food, visiting the play day with us and the 400 children of the other schools as well. He also did the practicalities of supporting managing the permissions for children to be able to visit, and also for the building. Other very significant people within our gifting was Raghubai. He provided his excellent and highly professional business services and managed the key constructions we carried out at Double School. He donated a large chunk of his personal fee and charging us only materials and other labor costs. He was an absolute superstar. And you can see the picture on the left. The teachers are sitting there with Meera and I, and that's Raghu over there, Raghubai. Ranjan Ben, Usha Ben, and Bindia Ben. Ranjan Ben is the principal we worked most closely with. And these three women are the sole staff managing the school with 75 children. They warmly welcomed us, supported us throughout the project, were open to understanding the right to play and how it can be accessed. They committed to exploring play-based learning further and continuing the aims of the project. Shivani, also a family member, traveled from Mumbai at her own cost to volunteer with us for 3 days. She came with such a positive, can-do, and respectful attitude. Her valuable experience of working with children and early childhood development supported us greatly. And she also donated the 100 gift bags for the children at Double School. And when we look at the different suppliers, we spent obviously a lot of time speaking to different suppliers, putting the projects together. On the top right, you can see the wonderful man from Kamal Stencils, Indira speaking with him. He made the animal stencils of which we saw the videos of. He also guided us on how he thinks the painting technique should go. Paris By, on the top left, we spent a huge amount of time with Paris, as you can imagine. He worked with us for the full month, driving us to the school, the suppliers, supporting with the suppliers, and wherever else we needed to be on the project. He very excitedly and voluntarily got involved in the project activities with the children and helped us source supplies and took a few photos and videos to support us. The two suppliers at the bottom, obviously, as you can see by all the videos, we use a huge amount of paint. When we first came, we got a little discount from the uncle there. And when we came back by the first video we showed him, he was so ecstatic to see that what we've been doing in the community. He offered us a higher 17% discount. Managed by as well, he ran a stationery store there. Within the 100 gift bags, we will be doing a video on it, but we included a number of different products for the children so that they could access and experiment at home the things they had learned. And it was every child got a gift bag, which was filled with things from Manish Bhai. We can't underestimate the gifts that were provided to us to make this project happen.
And apologies, we didn't give you the minute. So here you are. If we could just have a quick minute here, we'll have a moment of silence where you have a moment to share your thoughts.
Thank you, Meera.
Thank you. Sorry, before we start this next video, to say we might run a little bit late, 10-13 minutes later than expected. So please bear with us. We are nearly to the completion. And this is the last video you'll be watching. So please consider what the cognitive, physical, social, emotional, and other impacts you think all the activities you've seen today may have had on the children. We'll leave a 2-minute pause after the video, so do grab your pen and paper and jot down your responses. Thank you. So I hope you enjoyed that video, and that was the last of our videos for now. We're going to leave the next slide on. Before we do that, we're going to give you the 2 minutes promised to carry out that activity. Thank you. So this next slide will provide a list of some of those positive cognitive, physical, social, emotional, and other impacts that we believe this project might have had on the children. We'll leave this slide on for a moment and give you a chance to compare it to what you've got down. And please do share those other impacts that you think we might have missed. Thank you.
So when we look at this multicolored responses, it seems so cold, and when you're not there, I'll just give a little story about what happened. In one of these quotes, "See you tomorrow, I'm amazing." When we were there, we had to communicate with actions. They didn't speak much English. And fortunately, Meera is able to speak Gujarati. After one day, I obviously speak English to them continuously. And we were painting murals, of which I was amazed. I kept on saying, "You are amazing, you are amazing." At the end of the day, we had already spoken to them every day and said, "Good morning, see you tomorrow," that type of thing. When we left one day, one of the children, probably 8 or 9, shouted to me and said, "See you tomorrow, I am amazing." And that's a little bit of an indicator of what it feels like when it's there. So although it's multicolored, it doesn't show the excitement of it. I made my own purple. Is basically a background after Meera had taught them the color wheel, and taught me, actually. I had never seen one. They have a number of conversations between one another. We would write them down afterwards as part of our Mal gathering. Things like, "This is so much fun." Them saying that I've never painted before. Continuously saying, "I can do it." Anybody who knows Gujarati would know that Ben, which means sister, they would be calling us Ben, "Ben, ke karu chu?" What are you doing? I can do it all day. Quite impactful as well is one of the younger girls said that her friend always runs off, and now she's able to go and play there. So a number of feedback from the children.
So we'll run through our conclusions pretty quickly, just a few more slides left. And we'll start with just quickly speaking about the value of pilots. And especially when we're seeking to carry out an activity for the betterment or improvement of that space or community, and especially when we're entering new spaces that are more open to exploitation and planning to work with vulnerable groups of people, it's critical to take a considered and measured approach. And carrying out pilot test projects is one way to do that. In new untested environments, it's a wonderful way to start the building blocks of creating sustainable positive change. So from our point of view, some of the key benefits we found was it's an opportunity to learn and understand the environment more deeply, and to work on a grassroots level, really assess needs and test preconceptions against reality, understanding the map is never the territory. Discovering our own talents and gifts and the unique talents and gifts of the project participants, and through that finding synergies and opportunities together that we wouldn't have thought of alone. Understanding our own limitations, capacity and capabilities, as well as those of the communities or the key stakeholders who we will be working with. It's a way to use lower resources to test projects. And it's a wonderful way to create building blocks for longer term relationships and future projects together, and how we're trying to plan those and what would be the best way that would work for everyone. What can we do that is what is needed and wanted.
And when we talk about our approach, our foundation is set within the gift economy and thinking about it in a collaborative way. We accept the responsibility and onus on taking the time to understand the needs of people we're working with and the communities. We recognize the need for a non-paternalistic, a collaborative, considered and humble approach to create the magic and avoid any direct or indirect harm to the people. Sorry, there's a church bell happening right next to me, so I'm going to increase my voice a little. We value the cycle of gifting. Although we enter in such spaces as perceived gift givers, very quickly we become the receivers of these gifts as well, including beautiful friendships and connections and life-changing experiences, apart from the practicality of the gifting. When we look at some of the contradictions, we're looking to co-create, not dictate, to respect, not patronize, to enter a space with humility, not arrogance, compassion, not pity, to listen more, talk less, install flexibility, not rigidity, challenge our own preconceptions and avoid that very tempting, all-knowing attitude that Westerners can have, transparency versus secrecy, and the gratitude for gifts we're able to give and received, totally avoiding that savior complex, sharing resources openly versus owning them, setting clear expectations and not making grandiose promises that we can't fulfill. Play is a portal through which we can mobilize the gift economy and tap into our inherently playful, joyous, giving and loving natures to challenge the rotten constructs of capitalism that promote scarcity in favor of abundance, competition in favor of collaboration, fear in favor of love, exploitation in favor of care and respect, an exchange and taking economy instead of a gifting and sharing one, which is our natural state.
So you've heard a lot about why play matters, and we'll just quickly look at these top 3 points, that it is a right. Children have always played across the world, across spaces, across time. It's their way of learning about and making sense of their world. Article 31 of the United Nations on the Convention of the Rights of the Child enshrines the right to play as a child's unique human right, and it's often referred to as children's forgotten right. This is the most ratified treaty in the world, and it's worth noting that all rights in this convention, from the right to life, to food, shelter, education, to the right to play, are interlinked, interconnected, and considered equally important. We believe play creates change, and the power of play can generate new, innovative, and sustainable solutions to address these challenges that we're already facing, hardly emerging anymore. And play is that catalyst for that lasting positive change. It can spark learning, creativity, innovation. Play for well-being is something we looked at a lot through this slide: emotional well-being, cognitive, physical, social skills, and how it empowers children to rise to challenges and find hope.
And we end this presentation from a beautifully stated Lego Foundation quote, which shows the guidance of how a simple game can change a child's experience. We take a simple example of hide and seek. For a start, it can help children deal with the unknown, an important emotional skill. They'll need cognitive and creative skills to reason out a good, unexpected place to hide, and social skills to get all their friends to play along, and dashing from one hideout to another, or working out if they can cram into a tight spot. Those are all physical skills. In one simple, familiar game, they've learned to be more resilient, empathetic, aware of their surroundings, and more strategic. And the more they play, the more they weave those skills together, creating a rich tapestry of capabilities they can always rely on. And that ends our presentation today. I hope we're able to communicate everything that we have put through. It is a lot of information. Thank you for listening. Feel free to go to the YouTube channel and look at all the other videos. And we are all in social media. Over here is our contact as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was just beautiful. What a wonderful project, wonderful presentation, wonderful years of your life that you've given to this. That's great.
That means a lot coming from you, Jen.
Thank you. Well, it was really impressive. I'm sorry to say that Letitia doesn't feel well, so she's not going to be here to be the moderator. So I guess I'm going to try, and maybe Diane and Judith will also help if there's any need. But anyway, we'll go forward. I think there, like as you said, there's several issues, several questions, and let's hear also more questions that Judith and Diane will present. Do you all want to start presenting them, or yeah, there's Judith.
I can start. There were a lot of comments about how inspired people were by this talk and how important the concept is. To start with, your presentation ended with the game of hide and seek and how useful it was in learning various skills. And you had a lot about floor games that you didn't talk a lot about. So I wonder if you could say more about the different kinds of games, about cooperative games versus games that have a winner and a loser or competition. And also somebody compared this type of games to watching television and computer screens. So if you could just talk a bit more about the content of the types of games you're teaching.
Okay, I'll try and take that question. First, to clarify, we are not trying to teach any types of games because we are learning about play ourselves. What we're trying to do is create play opportunities and spaces and work with the children to see what they like, what works for them, and move organically from that. So when we started with the first chess and checkers board, which we traditionally know, most people know it as a board to be used for chess and checkers, but it's one of those boards that there are a lot of traditional games around as well, and people pick up and make up their own games around. So we hadn't planned on doing four floor games per se, but when the children showed such a high level of interest, and especially the painting of it, using a paintbrush, dipping into the colors, doing that big piece. Our second piece that we were definitely going to do was the hopscotch, and that was inspired by something we had seen on the internet somewhere done by someone else. And we felt it was, rather than a competitive game, something that facilitated self-empowerment, talking about values, learning that they're important. And the snakes and ladders and the backgammon emerged thereafter because the children worked so quickly and just wanted to do more and more. So we try and provide those types of opportunities and spaces, as I said before, rather than go out to teach children any type of specific game. And we do avoid sports because it's highly competitive. And we do avoid going into promoting and engaging in highly competitive games. We look for more collaboration, and some of the things what we were trying to show on the video was that when the children started working together, they would teach each other. They'd teach each other how to hold a paintbrush or how to use that paint, how to clean that paint, how the oil paint was different from the mural paint, which was water-based, etc. I hope that answers that question. Do you want to add anything to that?
I do. There was a huge amount of discussion about the creation of the floor games with the children, of how we design the blocks, how big they should be, how they counted across, what colors they should be. So it was a organically grown games.
Wonderful. You're really teaching collaboration at the same by experiencing it. Yeah.
Here's a question from Marta. She says, Well, we have information to connect with these sisters and projects. There are sisters in Spain that would be happy to hear about the understandings and practices and concrete projects. Many of us work from the concept of plenitude, play, and creativity, and vivir sabroso.
Brilliant. We try to spend half a year in Spain, and our contact is on the presentation, and Rockstone and Pebbles is active on all social media. So they're welcome to contact us. Our Spanish is not yet at the level that we would like to be, but I'm sure we can make it work.
That's great.
As we mentioned before, collaborative relationships do take a lot of time and consideration, and within the resource restrictions, we are able to communicate with different people.
Okay, since Spain has come up, I'd really like to hear a little bit more about your land regeneration project and in the Hebrew, in the Jewish tradition, a piece of the Bible, a Hebrew Bible, is read every Saturday morning, and the one this morning was on the biblical requirement to let the land lie fallow every 7 years and to return it every 50 years. So that seems to sort of plug into the day's interest. So could you say a little bit more about your project with your land, and then we'll get back to play. Or is working
the same thing.
Working on the land play for you, I would.
Absolutely.
Oh, the land has been one of our best playgrounds. I mean, I think we started our growing journey together. We knew very little about growing. That rock garden we started at the land was cactuses, little cactuses that we could propagate, and we found in the wild, and we tried to set up around there. And then we came back to the UK and started growing vegetables every year. So for the last 5 years, we've been growing quite a lot of vegetables. In that period, we keep coming back to the land, and we know it's very dry. We got very inspired by some water harvesting principles about the land, instead of that basically water pumps live under the ground, and instead of looking at collecting water through creating cement containers or deposits, you can start growing things that work with the land and work together, that start increasing the water table and helping the biodiversity, etc. So we play with it all the time. We get very excited when we see different things. Like we saw lots of rabbit poo one year and a few years ago, and we were like, is this good? Is this bad? We read a lot about it, got onto YouTube, found out that rabbit poo is one of the best fertilizers there is. So we then picked up and distributed it in other areas which needed it, for example. And yeah, we love working on that land and trying to just bring it back to life and respect it.
And it's so interesting that you mentioned the leaving the land to be, because as we have discovered, the beauty of mycelium that grows when the land is left, and we're experimenting with that. We're learning, it's the same learning journey as our play journey. And it's brilliant. We can literally spend 2 hours just pruning a tree that we happen to find, and we know what it is. And so there's a lot of play, but I also think that within that play comes a lot of that innovation that we speak about, a lot of experimentation, looking at what is there. We literally run off the water, we see how the water flows, build little things so that we know that we're increasing the water table. It's dry land, it's secco there. So it is playful and it is appropriate, Judith.
And one of our favorite subjects.
Yeah, people are always asking me, this is a good theory, but how do we practice it? And this is a wonderful example of practicing the gift economy at a certain level inside the exchange economy, because you also are doing your work as in these foundations and so on as accountants, which is very cool as well. I think there are many different levels in which you can practice the gift economy. There's some people that are actually living the gift economy without money and without working for money and so on. And that woman I mentioned to you before is trying to do that create a community to do that. And there's certainly big difficulties at all the levels. But what would you all say about that? What are the difficulties that you find in trying to do this at the level you're doing it at?
How many should we mention? I think that there's an interpretation of the gift economy that we constantly in discussion with between ourselves, with our friends. What is practical? What is possible? Especially living within the exchange economy and the situation we're in at the moment. I've personally found that I come across initiatives where even if it's not mentioned, the gift economy principles are at their foundation. When we talk about collaboration, we know in our mind that we're referring directly to the gift economy principles. When you know that you have instead of an exchange economy of a one-to-one relationship, you have an exchange of a one-to-many relationship. When we talk about it in our annual report or in public, we talk about the ripple effect, that often the recipient then shares out those gifts. And our responsibility is to recognize the appropriate gifts. And a lot of frameworks that we're setting up, like setting up MOUs, collaborative MOUs to structurize the gift economy is quite innovative, very experimental. And it takes long-term relationships to consider how we can support one another. It's a long journey, I think.
Yeah.
And I also think that when you start talking about the gift economy and introduce it to people, it's something they find extremely hard to grasp. And at the onset, often you get a reaction that if everything was gifted, then people would take everything. That idea that it wouldn't work, but I guess it depends in types of examples you carry out. And going slightly back to the land, what had happened is that we knew that we spend most of the time in the UK, and we didn't have that time that we could spend dedicatedly on that land to look after it. So we started thinking about how to manage it. And in that time, it was just past COVID, we came across a young couple, and they had been talking about how to live more closer to the nature, etc., looking at, potentially they could buy some land, etc. But obviously, we're then talking about a lot of money, etc. And we thought, okay, let's try something out. And we set out the project document, which is around the gift economy, of saying that we'll try and build this land, we'll try and generate it, we'll open it up to communal space, we'll bring respect and learning through it. And we gave the keys of that land to this young man. They broke off subsequently, and he had a deeper interest in it. He's a 30-year-old young man who has come as an angel in our life. It's our third year in our relationship with him. But when we first started that, there was a number of people, especially our friends in Spain, who thought we were a bit crazy and that it was very risky to just and yes, there was a bit of fear that, okay, is this the right thing to do? But in some way, we do have it's more than a gut instinct. We do have an understanding. We can see where there's value alignment, where people are thinking on a different level and not potentially out to get you. And that's not often the case. So when you do trust it, gifts open up. And he has been one of our biggest gifts, and what has allowed us to continue growing and building that space consistently.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thanks so much. Judith?
So you were just talking a little bit about finding your collaborators through trust and gut instinct. But the question is, how do you find collaborators and start a project?
Yeah, we have a lot of experience on that. And I think that you test the collaboration, you test the intent and the value alignment, because when we start a collaboration, we always make a concerted effort to look at that organization or that group of people or their initiative, whoever it is, and bring our expertise to the table. We're generally operational and finance consultants in large charities, so we'll start by reading their accounts, their annual reports, pick up where there could be need or not, and have an idea before we engage with them on what their need could be, which our expertise could feed. And then the first testing point is whether the collaborator is also willing to work in that way, or whether they start working with you and immediately focusing on just their need and how they can get you to support their need without considering that actually, where are we coming from? Where is that common space that we're both working towards? So very quickly you can move forward or not. And we've made big mistakes in the beginning and spend a lot of time over collaborations which haven't been mutually collaborative.
Mhm.
Do you want to say anything on that?
I do. I also think that the development of a certain amount of structure is required. So we have a number of conversations prior, but once we agree that, okay, we're going to form this collaborative relationship, we often dedicate one of us who's going to form the one-to-one relationship on the more technical side, another one on if we need to speak about the project outside of the technical side on our relationship, it's another person. So we are setting up frameworks that we are looking to how can you measure it, and measure is not a great word. Monitor, yeah.
So we have these MOUs or memorandums of understanding, and they basically detail value statements. This is the way we expect to work. When we create and co-create resources, we want to share them openly. So there's certain agreements we come within. These are the reporting frameworks. Every quarter, we will look at each other's work and look at what worked well, what didn't, what were unexpected things that happened through the collaboration, and set the clear agendas from the get-go that what do you think your expertise is, what ours is, and what can we commonly do to increase our impact. And one of our best examples of that is during the year of COVID, we engaged with a charity called On Call Africa. And they were growing as a charity. Their work is based in Zambia, and they work in rural Zambia, bringing medical health and services to those remote regions. One of the ways they do it is they seek out volunteer doctors in the UK who go and then volunteer for about 3 months and take that expertise and training to the country. Now, they were expanding and they needed a new finance system, so they reached out to us because we'd worked with one of the trustees in one of the larger charities we were working with. So he knew that we were skilled in this area. They wanted us to basically scope and implement a new finance system for them, and they wanted to pay us for it. And we said, we will provide you with a subsidized rate, but we're not looking for payment. We're looking for a way you can look in your organization and bring play more centrally into your organization. So initially it was very challenging, and they said, we've got a lot of things on, and we said, we appreciate that. We are all resource restricted, etc. Eventually we came to a really good point where they actually had a bit of a light bulb idea and said that, we're looking at measuring health outcomes, and it's really tough to measure what the health outcomes of interventions are. And with children, and play is a really good way to start doing that and to increase the health outcome. For example, teaching a child how to brush their teeth with a song is going to be much more effective than doing it without that. And so they started bringing play more centrally into their strategy and committed to certain activities, which they then subsequently carried out. And we continued and started off on scoping and implementing their new finance system.
That's
Wow.
great.
Go ahead.
I think you all are so methodical, and you explain things so well and lay them out, and that is really important. Maybe you should make a book or something where people can see how you do that, because there's a lot of spontaneity in gift giving, but there also needs to be plans like you do. So I'm looking forward to seeing a very clear booklet about how to practice the gift economy.
No pressure. Okay, we'll get on it. The videos play a very big part of that. So in the beginning of the setup of RSP, we looked at sharing open resources that were developed by ourselves and by our then associates. And the videos are very engaging and supporting, that you could practically see how things transpire.
But we do also continue to hope and aim to share other resources. So as we develop frameworks, and we do have some of those guidance notes available around, if you're a small charity looking to set up your communications, for example. So we've done that sort of work. Again, it's a matter of what is going to be used and what's required. But as we develop these resources, we do aim to share them freely.
But also as how to practice the gift economy. That ought to be right. Conservation of the exchange economy.
Well, I'm sure our collaborative partners that we've worked with on these projects would be very interested in that as well. We've been talking about, one of them is saying that we would love to create a blueprint of how that we can set up a project like that, so we can share it with other charities. We then can take it on.
Wonderful. Yeah.
That sort of fits into what I was going to ask next, which is how to scale up what you're doing so that it relates more to the wider society. I know you talked a little bit about pilots and using that as a way in, but can you talk a little bit more about scale?
I'm just having a thought of thinking of an example. So when we're looking at scale, we avoid the traditional idea of scale, which means go large, go big impact, right? So if I were to continue from Meera's example of On Call Africa OCA, it was quite a substantial negotiation discussing how we're going to support one another, how they're going to include play. But they really took it on in a really positive way, the CEO at the time and the trustees. What transpired then is they invited 4 master's students to go into their organization and critically analyze what importance of play that they could include in their health services. These students then delivered their masters, spoke about what their learnings were, included us in those conversations of talking about what was the result. OCA has a relationship with the local Ministry of Health, and that Ministry of Health with OCA are designing a curriculum for health interventions. So when a community health worker goes through a curriculum, play is within that curriculum. It is now being developed into countrywide. So when we're talking about scale, we imagine that scale, not scale of our charity becoming a lot bigger, but a scale of impact, what form that takes on is often organically grown.
And in terms of scale of growth, finance and size as a charity, we've made that strategic decision to remain small for a number of reasons. That there's a high level of compliance requirements forced on the charity and nonprofit sectors. And the larger you grow in income, the larger those become. Also, it restricts you in some ways from doing those grassroots, hands-on, experimental, deep understanding before you go into a project, we believe. So at the moment, at least in this strategy period and for the foreseeable future, we look at scaling through increasing impact through collaboration.
Okay, this isn't a question, it's a comment from Guadalupe Urbina. And she says that the opportunity to build simple cardboard furniture is magnificent. In many schools in our country, it's Costa Rica, the schools do not have basic furniture in good condition. I think it's great that the girls and boys learn to make them out of cardboard, and you have inspired me a lot. So that's just a comment on that piece of your project. One of the people that has contributed to our salons is Darsha Navias, and she talks a lot about play. And I wonder if you've worked with her, or if there's any sort of interchange there.
No, we haven't.
No.
Okay, well, she is a researcher that researches. She calls it the nested.
Evolved nest. She calls it evolved.
Evolved nest.
Yeah.
And basically it involves when people say, well, what if I didn't have this ideal childhood? What can I do? Her answer is go out and play.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
I'd like to ask one a question. We're in a terrible situation worldwide. Do you have hope? Does your work keep you optimistic or positive, let's say, or how do you feel? Do you see the light down the road?
Well, when we were first discussing the concept of the charity, a major thing that came out between us is understanding that we as adults have got so much to unlearn, to rethink, even from a simple governance structure or government structure. We have so much to unlearn to be able to create something new. And we thought that if we were to create a newer society, it would make sense to provide spaces for children where they can access their greatest innovation. And when you're thinking about children governing themselves, there's young parliaments, for example. How do they manage that? There's many examples of that, our child-led organization. So that's one aspect of it. The other one is the emotional benefits. We're sitting in huge management of conflict right now. But within play, you can see when the adults are away, they manage their conflict. There's a number of things that have to happen. You have to design rules of games and who's going to be doing what, and they get very intricate. So when we found together the concept of the charity, that's where we ended up. So there is hope. Not sure in our lifetime, but that,
But I'd like to answer that question as well, because I agree with you, Jen, that the state of affairs is untenable, and it is hideously scary what is happening at the moment and what the road we're going down. But what does bring hope, and doing the projects that, for me, for example, this project in India was one of the best experiences of my life. There's something about it that and that's what I meant about when you really forget about that gift you actually receive, when you sometimes go in with the wrong attitude of being the gift giver or a giver of things. And the paradox of life that constantly shines through, we just could not believe it. You look, and you know, India is broken down into so many tiers of socioeconomic stratas. But when you go above a certain middle class level, you can see it on the expression, that apathetic and bored look. And suddenly you're working in some of the poorest socioeconomic communities where they get that joy and that laughter. I don't understand. It kind of really threw me. It really threw me on a big level. That people, how is it that people who have been exploited, who are so highly vulnerable, who don't even have some of the most basic needs, this community we worked in, the average income of the people in that community was £1 to £3 a day. So why are they smiling and laughing? What is it? How are they able to tap into the joy of life? And I guess for me, the best part of the experience was it made me so joyful. We worked like animals for about 28 days straight. We were exhausted, but so excited.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Like, that's gifting instead of exchanging. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Jen, a very important change that I believe is happening right now that we speak about all the time is the concept that people are now understanding the mushroom system, the mycelium system, knowing that trees are supporting one another, that if we just left them alone, they are supporting one another. So it goes in complete contradiction to the exchange economy understanding that we are competitors, the survival of the fittest, so all of that narrative where nature was used as an example, that is no longer an appropriate example, as science is now.
Wonderful. Yeah.
And our fascination of mycelium led us to one documentary, which was talking about this in a very interesting perspective, that, you know, we need certain paradigm shifts. Firstly, the misquoted quote of Darwin, survival of the fittest, which was never said, but is the premise of capitalism on some levels, and sometimes justified by comments like even nature competes. But now scientists are coming out and saying that there is incredible amount of proofs through these mycelium networks, etc., that nature doesn't compete, it collaborates.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
I want to read you some of the responses to your question of how people can use these concepts in their own work, because I think that's another way to spread the ideas. Marta Benavides says that in El Salvador, we have the AHA Museum to celebrate folk arts and culture. And so we have many programs on caring of for the biosphere and care of the planet. We use interactive days dedicated to water, wetlands, rivers, oceans, etc., to have festivals of peace in the public university parks, houses of culture, permaculture farms. And Marie Long says that all life is about learning. Also, one can fail and then try again. And it's very broadening, teaching there is no excuse for boredom. And Guadalupe responds about the making the chair. She says, there are no borders between playing or working when children have time to use their hands to create something that you can use either to sit on or to play. So those are some of the comments that have been made in response to your questions.
Oh, thank you. And Marta, I can really, that is very delightful, especially the water-related activities in the Universal. Guadalupe, the chairs also made us extremely excited. When we met Linda for the first time, Meera and I had spent years thinking, and we knew we would bring this APT into the play space. And the gifting of Kimmy walking into our lives as an expert, and many years a teacher working with children in difficult circumstances. She's also very technical and able to write out these structures so well, you know. And Maria failing, absolutely. We fail continuously. We failed continuously in trying different ways of collaborating. And we've succeeded tremendously as well, more than we could imagine.
And with the APT, the appropriate paper technology, it's such a phenomenal idea and concept. And Linda, who has gifted us so much as a mentor, as a teacher, as someone who's just inspired us. She is a real expert in this technology and really open and wanting with a deep desire to spread it out to the whole world. So I would really reach out to her. She's on Facebook. She's the trustee and founder of charity High Hopes for Children, which does work in Ugandan community there predominantly. So do reach out to her and she will be very excited.
If I can interrupt for a minute, we have about 8 minutes left. I want to see if Juliette and Meera and maybe Jen have any last words.
As a last question, which won't take very long, and that is, could you just say a little bit more about the Convention on the Rights of the Child? You've mentioned it a couple times, and I think it's a really important document that not enough people know about.
Mm-hmm. And as mentioned, Meera mentioned in her presentation, it is often referred to as the forgotten right.
Article 31.
Article 31, the right to play.
But the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, I think, is a complete statement of all of the children's human rights, and one of the most ratified treaties in the world, in fact, signed by every single country, except, unfortunately, the United States. So the very important part of that UNCRC is how much they highlight that all the rights are interconnected, they're interlinked, there is no hierarchy of rights. They sit intrinsically together. And it's been so beautifully constructed that a lot of the rights have supporting general comments, which are detailed guidance notes and advise practical ways to facilitate governments to create spaces and structures that ensure that these rights are being met.
Yeah.
So in terms of, for example, child-friendly cities and promoting that, and how you can start really looking at your children, especially, and also from the city planning stages, which some initiatives do. So, and it's a really excellent document, and unfortunately not as respected or implemented as it should be.
I thought you were going to say easy to read.
Well, that too. It highlights children as independent human beings and not just little copies of their parents. Well, we're just about to the end. So, Jen, do you want to sum up, or should I? Or
I'm happy to. I want to just say a couple of things, and one is that you found a beautiful gift to give. You know, people who want to do gift economy need to be able to find the gift and use that your expertise in that way. It's really very impressive, and just congratulations to you all for making that happen. And maybe it would be wonderful to create a sort of a list, at least, of the different kinds of gifts that can be given in creative ways, like you all are doing. So I hope we can continue to communicate and discuss things with each other, because I think you're really on the right track.
Thank you, Jen.
Means so much coming from you, and we really are very honored in that to be invited and be able to speak to your group today. So thank you for
Glad
inviting.
that you came. Really glad that you came. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
Letitia usually does this part, but and let's all send her healing vibes. In 2 weeks, we will have another salon. It will be on the Day of Global Sisterhood, or Global Day of Sisterhood, that we organized. The International Feminists for a Gift Economy organized last Sunday, after the conference of the Association for the Study of Women in Mythology in Syracuse. And there were a number of us who are on this call, and a couple who aren't, but are part of that network, will be holding a salon on global sisterhood and gift economy. And the conference was on the subject of water. So I think that will trickle in a little bit as well.
That's wonderful. And I also wanted to mention that this next Saturday, there is a presentation of Arella Shadmey's book about the gift economy and the various different kinds of ways and projects of gift economy that she has encountered in the work that she's done. So be sure and stay tuned for that, and do come next Saturday at the same time to that book presentation.
Does anyone have any final comments?
No, not really. Just remember to play.
And please do share the chats and that with us, and we'll be happy to also just send you an email, Diane, and with some
course,
responses.
yeah. Thank you so much. So I think Jen and Judith summed it up, but in 2 weeks in 1 week we'll have Dr. Shadmey's book presentation, and in 2 weeks we will have the Global Day of Sisterhood salon, and you can find registration links at our website, the Maternal Gift Economy Movement.org. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening.
Good afternoon, good evening.
Bye.